Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Marine Protected Areas in Action, Tools, Restoration, and Governance for Healthier Seas. We will just wait for 2 more minutes so the other participants also join, and then we can start. Okay, so now we have enough participants to start the webinar. So again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Marine Protected Areas in Action, Tools, Restoration, Governance for Healthier Seas. My name is Vukashin, and I am joining you on behalf of Effective Project, and it is a pleasure to have you all with us today. Today's webinar brings together 4 Horizon Europe projects: Effective, MSP for Bio, Ocean Citizen, and Blue for All. And all 4 of these projects are working towards improving how marine protected areas are designed, managed, and implemented in practice. And the goal of this session is to showcase innovative tools and approaches, to share our experiences from 4 different projects, and also to engage with stakeholders working in marine conservation, planning, and policy. This is also part of the broader EU mission Restore Our Ocean and Waters initiative, where collaboration between projects is key to achieving real impact. Let me share first some housekeeping rules with you. So this webinar will be recorded for dissemination reporting purposes, and the recording will be published on Effective's YouTube channel for you to later watch and enjoy. Now, when it comes to the agenda, we will start with short project presentations, followed by a panel discussion, and then followed by the Q&A, where each of you can ask questions through the dedicated Q&A box in the Zoom. And after that, we'll have a brief closing remarks. Now, I will stop sharing my screen, and I want to give the floor to Natalia Preciado Mancera. She is a project manager of Effective Project, and Natalia will present how Effective is working to improve the effectiveness of marine protected areas through ecosystem-based management, restoration, and digital tools. So Natalia, the floor is yours.
Okay, I think you can see it.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. Thank you, Book, for organizing this interesting webinar. And I will be speaking about Effective project. So this project is related to restoration and actions that are taking place in the marine protected areas. And we are trying to see how the work that we do in the marine protected areas can be really effective, as the name said. So first of all, I'm going to go through a little bit what we are doing in the project, the different actions that we are taking, and how do we think that this can really help to this management of marine protected areas. So in this project, we are implementing different restoration technologies. These are different kind of solutions that we consider that could be applied in different areas. 2 of them are in Spain, other one is in Italy, and the last one is in Cyprus. Other part, really important, is like the backbone of the project, is the ecosystem-based management system. All of us know the ecosystem approach. So this ecosystem-based management system is the way to implement this ecosystem approach that I think all of us have been working through the years. And as a European project, it's really important to have this governance, participation, social engagement, and how do we use the technologies to show what we are really doing in the project. It sounds like a general way, but we consider in the project that this is really critical to do it correctly to have results that really can impact in the project. So starting with the ecosystem-based management system, this is, as I said, the base in the project. It is structured in three different pillars. The managerial pillar that is related to the planning, decision making, the information pillars. What do we do with the information that we have? And the participation pillar that is related to the stakeholders and how do we involve them in our projects. So the idea of this is, well, all of us, if we are here, is because we work with marine protected areas. We know how complex system they are. We have the economical, the ecological, the social component inside. So we have to see how to work with all of this information and try to do it in the best way. So part of this ecosystem-based management system are the adaptive management cycles. So we start trying to have this clear vision of how do we desire the future condition of the marine protected areas. Then we identify the pressures, the priorities, how can we implement everything that we have review. We do the monitoring and then again review everything. So these are cycles that we consider that are really important to see. Plan, implement, monitor, review, and improve. And again. So the idea of this is to have this shared language because the marine protected areas are different, the stakeholders are different, the way of managing everything is different. So the idea is to have this shared language to achieve it through common objectives. An important point that we have in effective is that it should be scalable. As I said, we have different size, different kind of MPAs. So what we are trying to do is to be able to implement it with a strong basis to the different MPAs. Actually, we have 5 cases that we are working this ecosystem-based management system. Two had 2 workshops in Spain, and 3 other MPAs are working in Italy with this ecosystem-based management system. So, as well, well, as all of us know, the evidence to have information to really study and demonstrate what we are doing, it's important, is essential. And what I mentioned is this, the future that we want, it has to be a really strong point in ecosystem-based management. So, well, so far the restoration actions that we have in this project are really different as we work with different kind of MPAs at different kind of species of different kind of problems. We try to test different kind of solutions. So here in the pilot one that is in Spain, we have tried different kind of preceding. The species as well are different. We have developed with the partners an artificial reef design. We have studied blue carbon, different kind of LBUs in other 3 different sounds to try to review which are the different results. I'm saying a lot different because as we have diverse kind of technologies and MPAs, is not the same what we're going to study per each of the areas. In the pilot 2, it's more related to remediation. What we're studying here are different nature-based techniques to make better solutions for the areas that we are working on. And one of the interesting results that we have had by the moment is that 100% of the mussels that we installed died. This is also a result. It was due to the temperature, but it is something that we will be facing through all of our projects. The changing environment that is working in the ocean, and as well the changing conditions that are around uh, our Mediterranean Sea in this case. For the third pilot, another kind of solution that this one is related to coral. We have intervened around 857 different colonies in Italy. And these corals are deeper than the other ones than we are working. An interesting part that they have is the community work that they have implemented. They have been working with divers, with the stakeholders that are around the area, trying to make them understand the process that takes to recover this area and these corals. And it's an really important to go deeper in these kind of actions. And last but not least, our pilot in Cyprus that actually was a solution that we usually see more in the Caribbean seas, these floating nurseries. But what they do is bring this into the Mediterranean and make this novel technology to try to restore fragmented corals around the area. So I'm not gonna go deeper in the solutions, but the point here is how different actions can be implemented according to the different situations that we have in the places that we are working. And as I said, this monitoring is an important part of the projects. I think all of us know how the information that we gather and what we do is essential to do it correctly. So here is what we're trying to do is having this evidence, trying to make protection really measurable. So having a different kind of monitoring depending on the areas that we are working, the species that we are studying, the technology that we are implementing, give us the diverse parameters that we would like to study and to see how to implement it. So having this evidence, we can have this adaptive management solution. And for us, we think that having the technologies to show what we are doing and to treat this kind of information, it's essential to transform it with different digital technologies. So that's why in Effective we are using different technologies to try to show the solutions that we are implementing. So we have a 2D map that what we are mixing here is some EMODnet information, some models of connectivity, some habitat mappings, trying to show the information that we have in the project and the information that had been already gathered from other projects, and it's gathering in EMODnet and other kind of platform in one place, so we can gather more data about the places that we are working or we would like to study. Also, another kind of digital tool that we have is this 3D twin. It's not that easy to go underwater. We know that not everyone can go diving, but what we are trying to do is having these digital solutions. So you can have this immersive feeling in the area that we are working. You can see the species, you can see the conditions, and as well have some what if scenarios. So what will happen if something change? And it's an idea to try to show what is happening through the project. And another kind of tool that we have is the COSI app that is related to this citizen science. So it has different parameters as are habitat, species, pollution, activities, human impact, infrastructure, and you can add pictures and information regarding these parameters. And then it has an interesting topic that is how do you feel about it? Could be related to pollution, to the activities, to the status of the habitat, and then it's easy to see what is happening in the area. So can be adapted to different situations and different kind of activities if you want to measure some status. So, well, yeah, for us, the digital part is an important tool to translate the data that we're having in the project into decision support. So, well, basically, these are the bases. We're working in a lot of things inside a project, but we have the ecosystem-based management system that provides us this management structure that we are working through the project. We have the monitoring that will give us the evidence. Then the digital tools try to provide the information that we have gathered in a different ways. Then the governance where we are going to turn this information and monitoring in evidence into decisions. And the last part that is related to the work that is needed to be done with the stakeholders. So the solutions can be really scalable, legitimate, and can be used through different MPAs. So these are the partners that are part of the project that are making this possible. And well, thank you for hearing us. And I hope that you would like to know more about Effective because this is just a drop in, in the ocean about what we are doing in this project. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Natalia, for this insightful overview of all the tools that we are using in Effective project. And now we move to the MSP for Bio presentation. It is my pleasure to introduce Ivana Stojanovic, coordinator and senior project manager and policy advisor. Ivana will present how MSP for Bio is working on integrating biodiversity into marine spatial planning and strengthening the link between MSPs and MPAs. Ivana, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can see my screen. Is it all good? Great. Yes, thank you for the invitation. We are happy to be here as MSP for Bio project, especially because I think it's the only project that actually ended. So I will be focusing on the main, a bit on the project, how it all went, but also on the main outputs and results, hopefully, that can be useful for the projects presented here that are ongoing, but also for other initiatives and participants that might be working on similar issues. So MSP for Bio actually ended in July last year. And so now we are in a post-project exploitation phase where we are still trying to spread the results and really, still working on the impact of the project. Actually, it ran for 3 years. Yes, included 18 partners across the EU from all EU sea basins, working in 6 test sites from all the EU sea basins, did a lot of work on cooperation with the other projects, including sister projects such as Blue for All. And MSP for Bio was actually focusing on bringing closer the processes of marine protection, so marine protected areas and maritime spatial planning. Aiming to really support the implementation of different policies at the EU and global level. And this was one of the projects that was working towards integration. So different dimensions such as environmental, socioeconomic, policy, they were all brought together in this final framework that I will show you in a few minutes. And actually, starting from the knowledge base or building the knowledge base and improving the science, it went towards the development and also demonstration of a management framework that actually brought the 3 dimensions that I mentioned together. And with the aim to prioritize strategic and spatial management measures. Test sites for this project were quite diverse. That helped a lot with the testing and validation of the tools and really to somehow make them as applicable as possible in different contexts, in different environments. So besides from being part of different sea basins, they really were different also in terms of size, in terms of ambitions and gaps and needs that had to be covered. So from the Baltic Sea, which was the entire transboundary area, to the, for example, Gulf of Cadiz or Graciosa Island of Azores. There was also cross-border area of the Black Sea, the Belgian part of the North Sea, and then also the Northwest Mediterranean with, for example, quite complex governance shared among 3 countries. And in each of these sites, communities of practice have been established as formats for stakeholder engagement. This was done from the very early on, so from the beginning of the project, so that everything that was done in the project was actually aligned with the needs coming from the site-specific stakeholders. So this framework that we called Ecological Socioeconomic Framework, or ESE framework, was co-developed with all these stakeholders. And this was also the way to ensure the uptake of these solutions addressing the management needs. So what was that at the very beginning, just to share, because this was actually a very good experience, is that the entry point for this framework that we developed were actually management questions. And the definition of these questions, management questions, actually came together, I mean, from the work that was done together with the stakeholders. And then after that, different cycles of feedback loops and validation and demonstration took place, hopefully now resulting in a really increased ownership of project results. As I said, the sites were different. So communities of practice had a similar format, but they actually were tailored to the diversity of the sites. But yeah, we had involved competent authorities, of course, experts and scientists, NGOs, but also economic stakeholders, regional organizations, and already existing working groups, for example. So we also try to build on the existing structures as much as possible. So in average, we had 4 to 5 interactions during the project that took place at the similar moments for all the sites. And every interaction had a dedicated aim for both projects, but also for the stakeholders, ending with this final one, well, solutions for the sites, be it the expansion of an MPA, or, for example, inputs for the next revision of the MSP, or different types of needs and solutions that were produced for the sites. Those were actually showcased, validated, and discussed at the end with the stakeholders. Yes, this is maybe now a bit too detailed, but actually maybe just to pass some experience, that this size of this communities of practice was from 10 to 20 participants, and in some cases the smaller groups, for example, of end users, were very useful for the co-development phases, especially contribution to some specific tools or features of tools that have been developed. A few recommendations from this process. I mean, some of them are really known, I think, to all the projects. Maybe the flexibility between in-person and online meetings, and trying to really have the same people, if possible, involved from the beginning to the end of the project, or I mean, in a way that the process really is logical and really then useful for the institutions or organizations represented by those stakeholders. The scoping phase was very useful because then we were really trying to address their needs directly, in addition to the implementation of the policies, so kind of both ways. And then we could really receive their feedback on the tools, especially from the end users, if they were useful, how to make them as flexible as possible, and then in the end, what is the support that they need so that they can use them long term. I think, these are the main highlights. So overall, from the project, there were many results. I show you some screenshots of those, and then also QR codes that you can access them, because they are all available on MSP4Bio website, but also Zenodo already. So the final results was this management framework, that I'll show you in a bit, but then there were different modules of this framework that are also standalone tools from the ecological toolkit that represents a bit more this environmental component to the socioeconomic elements, such as, for example, recommendations for the blue economy sectors on how to operate inside the MPAs or in close proximity of MPAs, trade-off methodology, then MPMSP guidance or strategic integration framework, and then different site-specific solutions that were produced in each of the sites. And of course, I should not forget the policy solutions that were to some extent also site-specific, but more at the general level. This as a framework was produced both as a guidance document, but also as an online tool, online platform, and targeting maybe mainly MSP authorities and planners, but also MPA managers, environmental authorities, decision makers, and then all the different sectors and interested parties in managing or identifying the MPAs. And it contains different criteria, practices, methods, and data. This is the early conceptual framework that actually was centered on the user perspective, and then it came and started with the management questions, and then with the practices, answers that came in the form of different tools and solutions that were produced in the project. This is how the process went, because I centered this presentation a bit on this work with the communities of practice. I explained this already, so just to see how this co-creation process actually took place. And then, for example, how it looks like, how these questions, management questions that have different levels, have been really then formulated, also categorized, taking into account, for example, different stages of the maritime spatial planning process. Then part of the results and solutions are actually modules of this as a framework. And as I said, these are actually representing these different dimensions of the project: environmental, socioeconomic, and policy. And here, this is a bit a lot of text, but actually, what are these tools and what you can find on our website? So under the ecological toolkit, there are also ecological criteria, climate-smart MPAs guidance, decision support tools, socioeconomic criteria, nature-inclusive design recommendations for blue economy sectors, MPMSP integration guide, then some policy coherence solutions and recommendations, also participatory mapping and trade-offs methodologies, and also lessons learned from the sites. And here you can find some decision support tools that have been improved or fully developed in the project. I don't want to go now into details. There is no time for that, but please explore them through the ESA framework or our website. They should be quite useful for some of the management or planning processes. All of this can be also accessed through Zenodo. And also you can find on the website some of the scientific publications that came out of this work that was done in the project. When it comes to really the good management practices inside the MPAs or in close proximity, 5 blue economy sectors have been selected. So you can find some recommendations for aquaculture, fisheries, tourism, and so on. As well as policy solutions on how actually these processes can be brought together closer. This is something that we also submitted for the ongoing processes of the Ocean Pact and Ocean Act that are now very much in the focus. This is the MPMSP guide, an additional product that we produce, which is very much summarized and really concretely presenting the tool and solutions that we produced in the project. Here maybe are some also just a quick representation of the application of the tools in the different sites. On the site, on our website, you can also find story maps per each of the sites. So concrete examples of solutions that have been produced per each of the sites through the application of these tools. So through their really testing and demonstration how they can be useful for the sites. Okay, these are some maybe additional representations of the ESA framework, but maybe this is not really necessary. This is also a bit representing what was produced in the different sites, and hopefully how that can be really useful for the stakeholders and communities of practice members. And here you can see how actually from the guidance document in parallel, also the web tool has been produced that is now online and active, and you can actually explore it and see if it's useful also for your purposes. We were targeting in our project different users and beneficiaries. I mentioned some of them, but we also took into account really different levels, so site level, but also national and regional, and also some secondary beneficiaries, such as, for example, businesses in blue economy sectors, energy and tourism, and also trying to reach out to a more general public, for example, students, and so on. And from this perspective, we also were thinking about the uptake and the transferability of our results. So this is something that we have been working on also through all these different stakeholder groups. We also had think tanks meetings with the other projects and produced a joint policy brief, which was also something that we considered as one of the possible goods ways towards impact, maybe also this synergizing and clustering with other projects. And to conclude, you will hear a bit more about this in also next presentations, but then the legacy of the project will also be ensured through the MP community network, which is a community started from Blue for All project, actually bringing together different projects, but also different tools and solutions, and also providing space for networking for MPA managers and different stakeholders. And this is where we will continue influencing other projects, other processes with the results that were produced in the project. Yes, this is our consortium, and still from the kickoff meeting in Azores. And here you can scan the QR code if you're interested. Also follow us. We are still active and trying to disseminate our results as much as possible and contribute to the ongoing policy, but also practical and project processes. Thank you so much, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you so much, Ivana. That was a very good presentation on how planning and biodiversity objectives can be better aligned. And our next speaker represents Ocean Citizen Project, and I'm very happy to welcome Professor Sergio Rossi, coordinator of the project. Sergio will present their work on marine forest restoration and the concept of gardeners of the sea. So Sergio, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think that, okay. I think when we start, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you indeed. I think this workshop may be very interesting. I want to be very brief with several concepts. This is an Ocean Citizen, this kind of a project in which we gather many people to make a common protocol. Okay, this is the main idea. Share this foundational knowledge around restoration. Replication in 5 different areas. We will see in a couple of slides, because it is important that the protocol in which you want to, in some way, see if the restoration program is enhancing the biodiversity, the connectivity, the carbon immobilization, and basically also the associated biomass or the fisheries of different taxonomic groups is really enhancing. And then, let us say, forging a new connection between the people and the sea. This is the main objective of Ocean Citizen. The main, let us see, objective is develop this kind of standardized protocol okay, in which we try to make a regeneration plan of different habitats at the same time in different ecozones, okay, with some sub-objectives, like, for example, understand and solve the legal framework in the different zones. We will talk about it, I think, during the talk that we will have. This is a very important thing, and we'll learn a lot about that. Just consolidate the different protocols and be sure that these protocols are the best adapted to the different areas, responding to different needs that are not the same in different areas, not only because of the environmental framework that we have and biological framework, but also because the recover of the habitat sometimes may differ in the final objectives of the different areas. And also create a long-term protocol also of monitoring and create the opportunity to have long-term trends towards a common ground that can be tailor-made, that can be adapted to the different areas in which to the project will stop the 31 of December 2027 and continue with different with different visions and different socioeconomic and realities. And also, of course, making, in this sense, something like a business model for this kind of long-term restoration plan. At the end of just to synthesize in one drawing, what we want to do is recover some disturbed areas, some impacted areas, and make sure that we are recovering the habitat functionality, and also link the different habitats that may be interconnected in different zones to be sure that all this has a common purpose to enhance this biodiversity, biomass, and this carbon, let us say, this carbon immobilization. It's in five different ecozones. Why? Again, because making in one ecozone is not enough. You have to be sure that the protocols are working in other places. The aim of this project is make an open source that can be shared all over the world if you want, or in different areas of the European community, and connect the different partners in a common ground. As you see here, there are 4 areas in the Arctic, in the Baltic, Mediterranean Sea, and the Red Sea that are working on these 3 main points. That's the biodiversity, the associated biomass, and the carbon immobilization, and one in Tenerife Island, in which we want to go further, just connecting other possibilities, like, for example, the integrated multi-trophic aquaculture with the restoration, and also the socio-economical part and this kind of business model. So these are the 22 partners that are involved, people that comes from NGOs, from academic partners, and also from small and medium enterprises that are all fully involved. And we have to think that one of the most challenging point is put the common ground and develop things in a common place, in this case, Tenerife, but also sharing information for other places like the Arctic, Baltic, Red Sea, and of course, the Mediterranean Sea. So what are the key results? Here I will be very brief also, not because we don't have results, but because we are processing a lot of them in terms of ecosystem services, in terms of shared protocols, and what are the optimizing, let's say, the optimized methods to do the best restoration plans of the tailor-making thing. Also gathering information about what happens in the different areas from a socio-economical point of view. So the contribution basically is this kind of application of a regenerative program that will be available. Think about it, because it has to be from the beginning an open source of interaction. In this case, what we are doing is making this information available, for example, with special issue in Open Research Europe. We are in this journal making already putting on the available to everybody all these different protocols through. There will be 20 to 22 papers. Let us say that will be something like a review methodological papers, and putting a common ground to understand how to study biodiversity, how to approach socioeconomy, how to do with, for example, communication related with these regeneration plans. Okay, the innovation of the project, from my point of view, is this kind of coordination around single objectives. As I saw from the other project, this is also um, promoted because one of the main problems, I think, in the Horizon projects in the past was that we all have very good ideas, but every single partner was making their own, and their own work in their own backyard. It's much easier, but we have to think that if we want to speed up this regeneration project, we have to just be much more coordinated. So also the risk strategy implementation, this is also important. Again, to be sure that all are in the same page, we are making this kind of a reef implementation. The reefs are substrates that in some way will boost, will speed up the functionality of the system through the complexity of the different forests that we are just promoting. And also looking, and one of the things that is very complicated sometimes to look is at the carrying capacity of the system. So looking exactly what the system can hold for this kind of restoration programs. Okay. Also take into account not only new protocols, but especially all protocols that can be consolidated. Okay. Also, it is very important that we are looking for this kind of bridge between the private and the public sectors to be sure that after the 4 years of working, this can be a reality and that can continue to be, let us say, making a follow-up. Because one of the most tragic things from my point of view of the projects is that once they finish, they don't have tools to continue the monitor and especially also the upscaling. So in some way, if you don't have this kind of mixed promotion between the private enterprise and the public and the academic thing, will be very difficult to maintain. This is one of the things that Europe wanted from the beginning. If you read carefully the calls, the many calls that we have about the restoration of different areas, not only on the ocean, but also in the terrestrial areas. They are trying to promote this kind of long-term follow-up, long-term monitoring. So just to be sure that we are talking about this kind of opportunities for scaling, the protocols that we are applying in some way can be also applied to other projects and to other proposals. For example, we are looking at some of the methods and trying to mix in some way this integrated multi-trophic aquaculture and restoration plan in the Faroes, for example, but there are other projects in other areas that are starting to be interested in what we are doing in the Ocean Citizen, to just be sure that this kind of tools are there to be promoted in some way. The project in some way will be ready to be upscaled. I think this is the next step that we have to keep in mind, because from the point of view, what we are doing is a pilot, of course, and what we have to keep in mind is that at the end, this kind of restoration plans cannot be only a pilot. At the moment, we have to think about the possibility to make an upscaling of these regeneration rewildering plans all over the world, in the sense that if we have these tools and we can speed up the functionality to improve the functionality of the systems, that will be really good. And I here also highlight the challenges, because the implementation of the REITs permits and the stakeholder communication, for example, for us is a problem. We have been working in different areas, again, in Israel, in Norway, in Denmark, and in Spain, in Tarragona. This seems to work quite well in the first 3 countries, of course. In the 4th country, in Spain, we have 2 sites. And one of the sites, Tarragona, is still pending, but it's okay. It seems that maybe we have the possibility to execute our job, and we are executing already many of the things that we have been previewed to do. But in Tenerife, for example, we have had huge problems with this kind of sometimes, lose information or changing the law every X months, for example. We have had problems, more requirements, and also the very slow, sometimes response from the regional and the central administrations. That has to be considered. And also the stakeholder communication, which has been very good in many places, but probably was not adapted in Tenerife to be the best due to the to the framework, to the new reality that in the last years is there present. Like for example, this kind of overload of tourists. But on the other side, we are just applying tools to try to avoid this really important problem. And I have to say that this is one of the things that we can just discuss during the next few minutes. So I just want to thank everybody in the Ocean Citizen, the partnership, which is more than 140 persons working in this project, and also the CINEA for their patience because of all these feedbacks that we have sometimes to correct and to just adapt to the new situations, the Ocean Citizen project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sergio. The restoration perspective and the integration in global communities is indeed extremely valuable. And now we'll dive deeper into this topic because we move to Blue for All project presentation. And I'm pleased to introduce Bob Rooms, coordinator of the project. Bob will share insights from stakeholder co-creation processes across multiple MPAs in Europe. And Bob, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
We cannot hear you.
I was muted as okay, thank you everyone. I will be, after all these nice presentations, I will guide you through the work we did in the Blue for All project. I will not be going into details for individual sites, but I will take you through the key lessons and insights we gained as part of the Blue for All project. Blue for All is a 4-year horizon project with 22 partners from 13 EU member states and 4 EU sea basins. We're in our last year, so perfect time for this webinar. And Blue for All, it's been called somewhat of a megalomaniac project because we are using quite a few living labs spread across Europe. We are working with MPAs and MPA managers as partners. We have individual MPAs. We're also working with MPA networks in the Mediterranean, the Northeast Atlantic, and the Baltic Sea. In addition to those 14 living labs, we also have 11 information sites that have informed the project's objectives. So this project was born out of frustration. We were faced with a situation that a lot of the parks and a lot of the MPAs that we were dealing with were actually paper parks. Speaking as someone who's from Belgium, we have reached our 30 by 30. We have very proud politicians stating that and talking about this everywhere. But in fact, most of this area that's been designated in Belgium, you could not distinguish it from outside the MPA because there are no appropriate management measures for these sites. So this project started as a way to move away from top-down designated MPAs, which were driven by regulatory demands, to MPAs that are actually supported by stakeholders that have co-creation in their management plans, in their designation, even in how they develop their tools. So we want to have MPAs that meet society's expectations. So we learn from our individual information sites and from our living labs, We see what works, what they need. We either develop new solutions or we adapt existing tools to meet their needs. We test this in the living labs, and then if they work, we will create a platform for the people to actually be able to use this. So we started out by having a needs assessment and a baseline assessment across these 25 MPAs, and we tried to figure out what they actually what are their main challenges, where they see areas for improvement. And for example, one thing that came up quite quickly is this stakeholder involvement. Only 35% of the MPAs involved local fishermen during the planning and designation phases. Climate change was included in less than half of the management plans, even though we have seen from Ivana that the tools are actually the tools are already available. There's a large focus on ecological knowledge in drafting management plans when the management plans are present, but frequently there's no accounting for social and governance tools, which are also quite essential. Ecosystem services were frequently mapped. When I say frequently, I mean about half of the MPAs tried to map them, but they were rarely quantified. A little over 10% of the MPAs actually quantified their ecosystem services or evaluated the effect of management measures on ecosystem services. And then there was the large elephant in the room, the financial strategy. Very few of these MPAs had a long-term financial strategy. So if we ask them what do they want, some of the things that came out is they want a clear long-term perspective. They want proportionate means to the tasks to which they are assigned. They need a coordinated governance because they often report to different institutions who have different priorities. They need access to data. It's not just ecological data, but also social and economic data. And preferably they want this data to be public. And they need easy to use, adaptable, and user-friendly tools. And some of the projects that spoke before me are working on this. So after this survey, we did a benchmarking of the different institutional and policy frameworks that are out there for MPAs. And you can see that there's quite a complex governance landscape with different frameworks working at different operational levels. So most of these MPAs have multiple designations. So not only are they under Natura 2000 designation, but they also have different regional conventions, and they can cause inconsistent reporting and assessment challenges. One of the solutions there is the regional SEAS conventions, which actually help, not only help expand MPA coverage, but also improve the coordination across these governance levels. If we look at it a bit more detailed, we did an analysis for 8 countries, 7 EU member states and Montenegro, and we looked at the different types of MPAs that are present in these countries, what their coverage is, how they are being designated, what the frameworks are for monitoring, etc. And we see that it was not an easy exercise to do, because often the data that is being reported is either inconsistent or a little bit out of date. And there's quite a complexity and variability in MPA designations, MPA types across the different countries, because often MPA types are designated for features of national interest. But this is not that new. Most of the MPAs are designated in coastal shallow waters, leaving pelagic and offshore benthic habitats underprotected. Some of the key challenges that were identified for effective MPA governance is a lack of clear and strong national legislation. So when there are unclear definitions of objectives, protection levels, and responsibilities, that weakens the implementation and the overall effectiveness of these MPAs. Secondly, many MPAs lack operational management plans, or when they are present, they fail to implement them. Third, governance is quite fragmented. As I mentioned, some MPAs have to report both to the fisheries, as well as to the nature conservation, as well as to other government departments. And in many MPAs, harmful or unsustainable activities are still allowed to continue. And where they're not allowed, oftentimes the regulations are not enforced because of the difficulty in enforcing these restrictions, especially when dealing with foreign vessels. And then, as I talked about it before, there's limited and unstable funding, which restricts their long-term management and implementation. So our idea, co-creation, make it more effective. If we are aligning what we want with ecology, with what is actually happening for the stakeholders, then we get a better support from the local population, so the stakeholder buy-in. And without this buy-in, no MPA will be effective on the long term. So as part of the project, we established stakeholder engagement groups in all our different living labs and involved them in the project from the start on. These stakeholder engagement groups included MPA managers, scientists, experts, local community members, fishermen, and authorities and policy makers. And this really transformed the stakeholders from users of the MPA to partners in thinking about how they want to manage the MPAs or what they want the MPA to look like. So we do this to improve acceptance, have more realistic management measures, and stronger long-term compliance. Now, it's not an easy process, otherwise we would have been doing it for a long time. There's the timeline. Stakeholders, they operate on different timelines than the project. So we did need to plan ahead and plan this very clearly. You have high-level stakeholders that are being engaged by many different parties. So you need targeted strategic engagement. Of course, not all stakeholders need the same level of involvement. And maintaining this engagement requires making clear the value for the stakeholders and updating them regularly. So they need to stay involved. Then for us, this may not be applying to your project, but if you're engaging with an MPA network, it's quite different than when you're engaging with an individual MPA, because you're often dealing with a higher level of governance. And then finally, if you can, do involve formal project structures and governance models that are already there, because they have already built up the network. That's the main message. And then one of the other things that came up is like designation is one step, but making sure that the governance of the MPA is right is also quite crucial. So early involvement, be flexible. No single engagement strategy works everywhere. We worked with local contact points, which was people that were actually active in the area to make the bridge between the project and the local parties and the stakeholder engagement groups, keep them regularly informed, and use this infrastructure that's already there. So was how we applied it in the project. These are our general recommendations if you need to do this in the future. So if you can integrate them from the start, align it with their own schedule. If what also works really well is if you can do it within the marine spatial planning processes. Have these engagement structures long term, get policy support, and when you develop tools, make sure they are quite practical. So we worked with them, and they said that tools were most successful when they were actually quite addressing a concrete need, and when they had clear and practical guidance, and when they were introduced to trusted peer channels. So we have 3 components. We have coordinated governance, empowered local actors, and accessible, suitable tools. And if all these are met, we can work towards these effective and efficient MPAs. One way to do this is to provide these tools to MPA managers on a platform where they can actually find them and use them. And this is the MPA Solutions Hub that the Blue for All project is developing. It will provide them with ecological, social, financial, and governance tools, which will all have step-by-step guidance and testimonials. People will be able to compare tested tools and upload new tools. And there will be peer-to-peer support via the MPA community network. And yes, Ivana, your tools are already in there. So we want this to be a basis for effective MPAs and networks of MPAs. It is co-created with the MPA managers that are active in our project, so it meets their needs, and they are really the ones that are telling us what this should look like. And it will be launched in September of this year. If you have any further questions, you can always ask them later or contact me through my email. Well,
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. This was indeed very insightful. And now we'll move into the panel discussion. So we have prepared a couple of questions to ask our panelists today. The first one is, how can we better connect planning, restoration, and management in marine protected areas? I think this question really aligns with effective and MSP for Bio, and also with Ocean Citizen Project. So maybe Natalia, you can start.
Okay. Thank you all for the interesting presentations. It's great to see the projects that are taking place. And well, related to these questions, I think MPAs are designated with really important objectives. And there is a concept that we didn't mention that much right now, but there is a lot of MPA paper MPAs. So I think it's really essential to try to connect this element with clear objective, good understanding of the pressures that we have. As I said in my presentation, there is converging the socioeconomic, ecological, a lot of different kind of activities, regulation, management capacities. So if we understand the different parts that are, we're trying to find an adaptive mechanism that can really fit in the different situations that we are having. We can try to have an answer of how to connect, but taking in account and studying previously what we really have. I think the image that Sergi showed, that we must first understand to then restore. It's the same thing. We must understand what is happening to then be able to connect, to have a planning, to have restoration, and be able to do these plans of for the MPAs. So I think, yeah.
Thank you, Natalia. Ivana, do you want to add something here? I think you're muted.
Sorry. Thank you. Yes, I think I can add a bit of perspective from MSP for Bio project. Maybe that really the issue is that MPAs are really often managed in isolation, and especially from the wider maritime spatial planning context. Really protection, restoration, and sustainable use, they need to be addressed together. And ecosystem-based MSP, maritime spatial planning, could be a solution for that. And I mean, I showed how we suggested this integration of marine protection or MPAs in the different cycle or in the full cycle of the maritime spatial planning process. So from planning and designation to management, monitoring, and adaptive governance. And this framework can help with that we developed, I think. But in particular, connecting the objectives, so biodiversity objectives, with planning decisions, with the cumulative impact assessment and socioeconomic elements. And I also mentioned, for example, that we produce these guidelines, this recommendation for the operation of economy sectors or their nature inclusive design, meaning how they should be operating with good practices, good examples inside or in close proximity of MPAs. So this is also something that I think would actually really help this better planning, restoration and management of MPAs if we would have right from the planning and designation of MPAs on board different stakeholders. So not only those that are really always involved in the MPA processes, but also representatives of blue economy sectors. We know that there are many times conflicts there. That is why there is this entire story also on the trade-offs and so on. So yeah, really putting the marine protection into the context of also maritime spatial planning. That would also help implementation of the EU policies, proper implementation. And in addition to that, I think this is what is happening now, I hope, with the Ocean Pact and Ocean Act, actually, where both directives, MSP directive and MSFD directive, are being revised. And it seems with the goal to really bring them closer in a way of alignment and maybe better implementation of both, maybe even in an integrative manner. This is from my perspective. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing your perspective. And now, Sergio, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah. I want to add 3 points very briefly, very, very briefly. The first is that on the one side, and having a comment, as have been told here in many presentations, long-term monitoring, which is one of the obsessions of Europe, but this kind of focus from Europe also comes from saying, hey, guys, we are not planning to maintain long-term monitoring, restoration, and conservation programs alone. We need some other tools to do that. That's the first point that I think is really important to understand, because there is not enough money from the regional, national, or European government to maintain all this. And especially now that we are in a really transitional way to we don't know where. But it's important to understand that we shifted now from one perspective to another in the global framework. The second that I think is very important to understand is, again, Europe also wants to take advantage of the hundreds of millions of euros that have been invested in marine protected areas, Red Natura 2000. And it is why they are promoting the restoration plans, rewilding plans in areas that are already protected, to combine restoration with conservation. This is one of the things that from my point of view, there is people that is not really aware of what are the plans of Europe, saying, hey guys, please do it. But if we have invested so much money to protect some areas in a more or less efficient way, we can say that in many cases, as have been saying here for Bob, I saw Bob just a little bit sad about that, but I know perfectly what you're talking about. This many reasons that we have to just promote not only synergy but effectiveness on things that have been also for the upscaling that we can talk later on, the protocols that we have to apply. And the third, which Natalia said just very briefly, but it's very important, extremely important. Unfortunately, climate change and other stressors are fast changing the possibilities to make any kind of conservation and restoration. So this 100% of mussels that died is not a failure, it's just a reality. We have the same thing here in the Taranto. I mean, the people that is making this kind of aquaculture is desperate because they are seeing that all the productivity of mussels are just disappearing. And adapting our plans, not only conservation, but also restoration, especially restoration, and also of aquaculture, fisheries, and so on, has to be very, very focused on the fast changing world. And this is one of the things that now, again, we start to not to understand, because many people understood decades ago, but to be applied.
Thank you, Sergio. And now let's talk a bit about the role of local communities and stakeholders. So, what is the role of local communities and stakeholders in making marine protected areas actually successful? I think that Blue for All and Effective are the right projects to answer this. So, Bob, do you want to say something about this question?
Sure. Yes. I think I've been quite clear that I think it's quite critical for the success of MPAs to have local and communities and stakeholder support. Not only in when you're designating your MPA, they are a quite vital source in local knowledge, but also during the management of the MPAs, because you can have a monitoring program, but there's no better monitoring program than all the fishermen or coastal users that are out there day in, day out. They know the interannual variability. If they are willing to talk about it, because that's quite crucial. If they are willing to help inform you, then it's a super important source of information. So another aspect is if you have this buy-in, then you have a sort of a social control. You will need to invest less in enforcement because you have social control. I've seen this among fishermen where they say, like, this guy, he's been fishing where he shouldn't have been, and they talk to each other and they say, don't do this in the future. It works better than a fine in some cases. This sense of ownership creates a sort of a responsibility. And even in restoration, because Sergio, you've been talking about restoration, it's going to be quite crucial in the next few years. There is a role for citizens to play in supporting these restoration efforts. This can be through citizen science, as you have shown, but this can even be by promoting equity and sustainability in the execution of restoration actions. So actually involving local actors in these management measures that you will be implementing, and that way they really have a stake in making sure that these things work. I think that's what I wanted to say, and I will leave to Natalia.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree. I think this feeling of ownership is really important in the marine protected areas. Usually in these areas that we work, well, people are fishing, working, visiting, doing research. There are some marine resources that we're taking for there. So the stakeholders really can contribute in several ways. They have, as Bob said, this local knowledge of the uses that are around, what have happened, how it have changed, what it affects more. So they are the ones who can really help us to identify what measures are really feasible to do in practice, and where the management that sometimes we try to put may face some barriers. So this co-creation that as well was mentioned is essential to have it since the beginning, have this early involvement with the local communities, because, well, sometimes even well-designed regulations can be difficult to implement if we are not able to explain the purpose, or we haven't built it in a way that could be really implemented, and do not make them feel represented in the process that we're trying to change in the marine protected areas. So yeah, for me, this kind of ownership is essential to try to give them their role in the local communities, and to try to have a successful MPAs to complement the answer. Thank you.
Thank you both. We have two more questions. So the next one is, from your experience, what are the key tools or solutions that are still missing for MPA managers? So, Ivana, do you want to open this question?
Yes, I would maybe bring up that there are many tools that are already out there, and I think our projects, I guess all of our projects have examined those tools, maybe work on some upgrades, and really even clustering them, categorizing them, bringing them together, such as Blue for All and the MPA Solutions Hub and so on. So yes, I would maybe talk a bit more about this maybe integrated approach of really having somehow all these different tools available in one place. Now this is happening with the MPA Solution Hub, and I think this was really a crucial step because there were also so many projects resulting in different website platforms, tools. But then I guess for end users and for stakeholders, it was quite difficult to really understand where to find them, how, especially once the projects end. Also, I guess all these projects contributed a lot to this integration between these environmental aspects of the tools and also socioeconomic and policy, and then producing these decision support tools that should usually be user-friendly, accessible, replicable, so used in different contexts and environments. And then also connecting different types of data. So not only biodiversity and socioeconomic, but maybe also climate change, sectoral pressures. I guess this kind of integration is something that is still needed, that still can be improved, so that really then the process can take into account all this. Yes, I guess also for many tools that are still being used by different projects, we did receive a bit of feedback on their user friendliness and how actually it is easy to use them without maybe technical or expert support. So at least from my perspective, it seems that maybe before really producing new tools, it would be good to really then have a good overview of what is already out there, how easy it is to use, how it can be used in different sites, different sea bases, and how to really then put all these different or integrate all these different dimensions together so that we really have effective MPAs and not maybe just the ecological part, for example, well described or well developed, but then the other elements less, which then of course brings to or takes to less effectiveness or these paper parks as in many cases and so on. So yeah, I would start this discussion with maybe a bit of this kind of perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivana. Bob, do you want to add something there?
I think Ivana covered it really, really well. So I support everything you said. I could just add to that as part of Blue for All, we did a review of hundreds of ecological tools produced in the different projects. And we found that only about 10% was still supported. So having a repository or having long-term support for functioning tools is quite crucial. And then one thing that struck me as a marine ecologist is actually that when we went out to the MPA managers and asked them which tools they really wanted to apply in their MPAs, the majority ended up looking for social and governance tools. That this is where they were lacking, in their own opinion, more than in the ecological tools. And then the rest, Ivana, you covered it perfectly.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Ivana. And the last question of our panel discussion is how can we scale successful approaches across Europe? So, Sergio, do you want to cover this one?
Yeah, I will talk about the the restoration part, not and be very clear with that. Okay, the first thing is take into account that silviculture has been made during the last thousands of years on land. So we know how to do with planting trees and make new forest. All the silviculture applied to the sea is very recent, during the last 30 years, and especially some groups. For example, the Israeli group of Dr. Buki Rinkevich and Dr. Dor Shefi have been working in this kind of optimization of processes. But we are still in some kind of we have some kind of an issue about that, even though we know that many of the methods that we are applying can be upscaled and can be just taken into account. The thing is, what? In the sense that we are in an uncertain plane now because this fast changing world, and we have to go fast to make not only the pilot, but also the upscaling. And the upscaling has to be realistic. Let me explain one very in line and very briefly in line with Natalia said, again, with the mussels. The mussels are dying, but invasive species like Pintada radiata, which is a bivalve coming from the Persian Gulf, this Persian Gulf bivalve is surviving because it's used to have even 36 degrees centigrade that probably during the next 10, 15 years will be a reality in the surface water, the first 5 meters depth waters in the Mediterranean Sea, in some areas in which this kind of mariculture is made. So be realistic with that. Maybe, and I say maybe because again we are in an uncharted, in a really uncharted position. Making the upscaling has to be realistic in the sense of using the proper tools, making this kind of ecosystem approach, and living not only and seeing not only the single species or the single habitat, but take into account all the connectivity of the different habitats. This is a must, and the must has to consider also from the beginning the people that is on the place. Why? Because they start asking questions. They have less fish, they have less corals, they have less, Posidonia or for different stressors, and they to be aware that the famous ecosystem services, I say in brackets, are losing. You are just we are losing this kind of possibility to maintain the functionality of the different ecosystems. So that thing has to be, from my point of view, we have to focus on this thing, among others, of course.
Thank you, Sergio. Bob, do you want to add something or yes?
Yes. I think one of the other things we can do is we can support a community of practice of MPA managers, allow them to exchange their information on what works and how to implement these things. As scientists, we're very much used to working together internationally, and we are lucky enough to have the means to do that. I think for MPA managers, this is not always the case. So supporting such an initiative would be great. The MPA community network is one step forward there, but there's still a lot of potential to actually increase this.
Thank you, Bob. And since we are a bit short on time, I suggest that we go to the Q&A session. We have some questions from the audience. So the first one is from David. He asks, how do these habitat remediation and biodiversity enhancement endeavors within European MPAs account for multiple environmental stressors, such as nutrient pollution, climate change, toxic chemicals, fishing, etc., and resulting shifting baseline in natural capital and ecosystem services? Whoever wants to reply, you can just raise your hand or open your mic. Yes, you.
From my point of view, that's a question. So we are, for example, considering sometimes we're considering the temperature or we are considering alone, even in the experiments, the pH, or we are combining both. But then what happened with nutrients, the excess load of nutrients, or what happens with all the practices that we are doing in the transformation of the coastline through harbors, through roads, cities, bridges, whatever. Or we are not considering, direct impacts, like, for example, different kind of fisheries, industrial and artisanal fisheries. So there is no project that allows to make that. You have to try to identify the main impacts in a different zone, in a specific zone, like, for example, all of them climate change, of course, and also maybe pollution, maybe excess of nutrients, maybe also, I don't know, changes in the coastline, sand transport or whatever. And it's not easy because this is impacting and already degrading, already just making not possible to have these ecosystem services that you are talking about. So I don't think there is any project at the moment that can answer completely this question. The only thing that we can do is try to do as much as we can a tailor-made restoration plan, which is, again, not easy. In the Arctic, for example, it's dedicated basically to the cod. It's basically dedicated to the kelp and trying to enhance these two species because they consider that these are the base of the whole habitat in a certain area. But of course, there are things that are lacking there and have to be also considered. But step by step, I think that we can just, respond to this kind of impact.
Thank you, Sergio. Would anyone else want to like to add something here, or we can go to the next question? So we have one question that was asked during the MSP for Bio presentation, and Nidhi asks, is there any opportunity for electronics engineering or VLSI design involvement in this project? But since this project has ended, I don't think that there are any new opportunities. You wanna correct me if I'm wrong.
Since I'm not a very technical person, I honestly don't even know what this means, to be honest, how this can be integrated in MSP for Bio project. But yeah, the project ended. I mean, if somebody could then be a bit clearer what it means exactly, we can talk about it. You can contact me directly, but right now I'm not really sure what this means.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Then there was one more question from Nidhi, but I saw that Bob just answered it in written form. And also there is one more. This is more of an observation from David. He says that NOAA fisheries sought advice from saltwater anglers on the distribution and abundance of Black Sea bass in southern New England due to warming waters, which were not sampled adequately in the Federal Bottom Troll Survey. So I think this is something that happens occasionally in Europe as well. So would you like to comment on this? Did you face similar challenges in your work?
I think it's an example of how you can get information from the community that you may not get through your monitoring protocols. So thanks, David, for illustrating the importance of getting this support from your local communities.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. And this question, we have covered all of the questions asked by the audience. So thank you all for your questions. Thank you all for your involvement. And we can now approach the end of our webinar. I would like to thank all our speakers for their excellent contributions, for their patience, especially through the organization of the webinar. And I want to thank all participants for joining us today. So this session clearly showed the importance of combining science, tools, stakeholder engagement, and policy frameworks to make our marine protected areas truly effective. And if you want to learn more, we encourage you to follow all 4 projects involved in today's webinar on social media. And we will also share the recording and materials after the webinar. So the webinar will be shared on Effective's YouTube channel. Thank you again, and we hope to see you at our future events. Have a great day.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you all for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you, Mati.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
day.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.